A lot of people don't know that Japanese make wine, and they're also surprised that Japanese make cheese. But actually, the first cheeses were made in Japan over 1,400 years ago. Cows were imported from Korea and China, along with Buddhism through the Silk Road. And they used to make a cheese called so, and it was used by boiling down the milk, and it became brown as the sugars burnt, a little bit like Norwegian brown cheese. And this was used by the aristocracy and the royalty. It was seen as medicinal and nourishing. By the early 1800s, there were about 700 cows around Chiba, which is seen as the birthplace of Japanese dairy. And at the Meiji Restoration, that's towards the end of the 1800s when Japan opened up, then an American arrived with cows and sheep and introduced sort of modern cheesemaking techniques. One of the earliest cheesemaking facilities was a Trappist abbey near Hakodate in Hokkaido in 1900, 1904. The first style to be made of the modern cheese was around 1933 with a Gouda style, and then processed cheese followed with snow-browned Hokkaido cheese in 1934. After the war, American processed cheese flooded the market, and the term natural cheese was coined, and that's really referring to what we would call proper cheese in Europe, not processed cheese. In 1959, there was a World Cheese Exhibition in Tokyo that attracted about 80,000 visitors, and cheese really started to pick up with about 10 grams a day included in children's lunchboxes. The 1964 Tokyo Olympics really opened up the Japanese eyes to Western food and Western diets, and cheese grew from there. In the 1970s, there was a reduction in import tariffs, which then allowed further cheeses to be imported, and along with increased wine consumption and pizza came increased interest in cheese. So a pivotal point was 1975 when Kosuke Nishimura, he learned cheesemaking in France and he established Hokkaido Claire, and he made a Camembert style cheese, which was the first artisan small scale cheese to be made. Then the following years, further makers who had trained in Denmark, Kondo Tokachi, and in Wisconsin, Nozomi Miyajima, launched Kyoto Gakusha Shintoku Farm. Cow's milk dominated the industry for a long time, but the influence of French cheese then raised the profile of goat's cheese, particularly among farmhouse producers in Nagano, Guma and Tochigi. Goats came to Japan around 1400 from China, and they were used mainly for meat, and that was mostly amongst a hidden Christian community in Japan. Dairy goats arrived much later in the 1800s, probably with Admiral Perry from America. Today there are about 330 cheese producers in Japan. In my book, Japanese Wine, I also talk about cheese, and I include about 130. I've limited that to smaller artisanal producers. 40% of the cheese is made in Hokkaido, and there are other hotspots around the country, like in northern Tochigi Prefecture. There's one geographical indication, that's Tokachi raclette. They have a moor wash, which is washed in the local spring water, and that's worth looking out for. So they have a range of styles that are produced today. You've got Italian style, they're usually fresh and easy. Anything from burrata, caciocavallo, robiola, scamorza, ricotta, which technically isn't a cheese. String cheese is popular, generally for snacking, but there's a few artisanal producers of high quality stuff. You've got the semi-hard cheeses, and that's dominated by caciocavallo and Gouda. You get the white bloomy rind, like the Camembert. Some of the best cheeses are the Alpine style, and these come from Hokkaido. There's some fantastic producers up there. I outline them in the book. There are Tomme, quite underrated. They're a spongier mountain type cheese. You might be surprised to see Mimolette. It's not the same Mimolette as you get in France with the mites eating the rind. It's coloured with annatto, and it's still quite fun to see on a cheese plate. And there's washed rinds like the Munster. Rarely as stinky and smelly as a Munster, but more like a Taleggio in terms of stink. There's quite a lot of blue cheeses around. They tend to be tamer than a Roquefort or a Stilton. They're much more in line with Gorgonzola for their softness and approachability. There are some really interesting cheeses with a Japanese twist, and a few that I really, really like are the Sepia. It's a squid ink dyed Camembert to represent the ground covered in snow. There's a Mirasaki fromage from Hiroshima. Now this is really iconic. It's like a Valence goat's cheese, but they use charcoal to darken the base so it looks like a snow-capped Fuji. Can you get any more iconic? There are quite a few that are washed and aged in sake or maybe wine pomace. And then you have the seasonal ones that might be wrapped in a sakura leaf or have that's a cherry blossom leaf, or have a cherry blossom leaf put on top. Capretto in Nagano make a misolina. It's a miso-infused goat cheddar. And there's other producers using miso, soy, or tamari to infuse their cheeses with a bit more of a Japanese flavor. Very few people still make the ancient so cheese. One is Latte Takamatsu in Nara. Two producers that make a seasonal Sakura leaf are Bosqueso in Nagano. They wrap their cheese with a cherry blossom leaf. And Shintoku Farm in Hokkaido. They make a Sakura mochi chèvre, like a mochi is that round rice ball, and they cover that with a cherry blossom leaf. Bosqueso also do some interesting coloured, green colour with matcha, pink colour with beetroot, and there's even a three-coloured Katamatsu Mike, or Katamatsu Mike, I'm not sure how they pronounce this. It's a cheddar style with three different curd colours mixed together. It can be difficult in Japan to find cheese. Having pounded the streets and spoken with a lot of wine bars, I have found many bars and restaurants where you can get Japanese cheese platters along with wine. It's great. Sapporo is a real hotspot for this. And there are some cheese producers, if you can reach them, you might have to have your own car. They're open for lunch and you can buy the cheeses and taste them there. One of the best places for cheese in Tokyo, you have Voice of Cheese that do Hokkaido cheeses, and in Sapporo Airport there's an amazing cheese and wine store. It's probably the best airport store in the world for me. All this and more, much more, is contained in my book, the comprehensive book on Japanese wine, simply titled Japanese Wine by Nick Rowan. That's me.